All right. Welcome, one and all, hopefully. Welcome to 58 Day. Intergalactic 58 Day is what we decided last time,
Yes,
unofficially.
indeed.
But greetings, everyone. My name is Andy Yost. I'm with McFadden Sales. We are independent territory representatives for the Shure brand for many years. I'm joined again by my good friend Corey Willis, who is what we say last time, Chief Market Development Expert.
Chief was in there somewhere. Yeah, I remember that. But
Yeah. Yeah. So, welcome, 58 Day. It's a somewhat of a new holiday, if you will, but it's certainly not a new reason to celebrate. Today's intent is to heighten the visibility and awareness of the world's most iconic microphone, which is the Shure SM58. It has been an industry standard for 50 something years, right? And
just over 50. Yep,
just over 50.
1966, I believe.
Yeah. So here we are. We're doing a live event. This is the second in a three-part series Corey and I are doing. Last week we hoped you joined us. We chatted about podcasting and getting up and running, and had a bit of love for the 58, but more so about other Shure products. And today we're gonna have a bit of story time, a bit of a history lesson, a bit of show and tell, perhaps. Sounded like kindergarten, actually.
Story time, show and tell, maybe a nap later. Who knows?
Yeah. So pull up your carpet squares and let's. But so yeah, welcome, Corey. Thanks for taking the time to hang with me again. How you doing?
Absolutely. No, this has been great. I'm doing well here in Chicago. It's sunny and cold, so could be winter, could be summer. No one knows, but very typical. So yeah, it's a great day. Happy to join you to talk about definitely a microphone that is, not only part of Shure's history, but will continue probably to be part of the future of this company
Right.
for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, happy to be here. Some of the things we're going to talk about today, the history of the mic, some comparable models, and kind of where Shure is at right now in terms of mics that we've made over just the past few years that have drawn upon the historical mic that is the SM58. So.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar, this is the microphone right here. Seen in countless movies, TV shows, concerts, you name it. It's been on camera everywhere. So this is it if you've never seen one, but you probably have, even if you just didn't know what it was. So
yeah, yours is in nice condition. Well done.
I just unboxed this, and I think that's something interesting to talk about. So this mic's been out for so long that it's undergone a bunch of different changes in packaging, et cetera. This is the current package here for the SM58. Is that reversed, or
no?
I can't tell.
It looks
all right, cool. Well, yeah. So this is the current packaging,
yeah.
And same specs, same standards since 1966.
And that's a good place to start, because when it's hard to be involved in, well, certainly our positions, but even just being a musician, and whether you can identify it by its model name like we can or not. Like you just mentioned, when you see the 58, you know what it is. It's like Webster's dictionary for microphone is either the 55, which is the Elvis mic for you guys, or the 58. So you want to give them a bit of history or background, how this got started, because this was not the first Shure microphone by any means. In fact, it was pretty far down the path. But taken back through time, where did we get started with this iconic microphone?
Yeah, so Shure started in 1925. Similar to what you just mentioned, the Elvis mic, the Super 55, if you will, was iconic up until the insurgence of the Unidyne 3. So when we talk SM58, when we talk SM57, countless other models that Shure makes, well, counted models that Shure makes, they all were drawn upon this cartridge, the Unidyne 3. So Ernie Sealer is who designed the cartridge of the Unidyne 3, which is seen in the 545, which was similar to an SM57. It's all chromed out. It's was one of the first to use that, but I think this is another model that's more noteworthy, or also noteworthy. This is the 565, the Freddie Mercury mic. So this is another model that utilizes the same cartridge as the SM58. So once again, I'm mentioning here the Unidyne 3. That refers to the cartridge we use in all these models that I've just talked about.
Right.
So, yep, there we go. That's the patent filed in 1961 for this model.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it kind of redefined who Shure was as a company in terms of just its form factor. It's the first Shure microphone to be end address. So the 545, like I said, was the first model that came out, first predecessor of the 58. But in terms of the design, yeah. So when we say end address, that means we're actually speaking into the end of the microphone rather than the front of it. So what this allowed was for a more uniform polar pattern. So as different speakers are talking into or singing into this microphone, it's more uniform than say the previous models of the 55 or the side address. So
right.
The other part about the form factor of this that's really unique is that, or it was unique at the time, is that you could just take it on and off the stand very easily. So, the Elvis mic, that's on a straight stand. I mean, it looks great, but you got to carry the stand around with you. With this, you're someone like Frank Sinatra and you're on stage and, the whole crowd's swooning over you. You got to get out into the crowd or get off the stage, but you still want to be singing. And this allowed for that. So singers, speakers, they could, it was more mobile. So, once again, it was.
Let me go ahead and read all this for everybody. Just bear
yeah, if you could.
Okay, it's only 4 pages. All right, hang on. No, I was one of the first things I remember discussing with people I was talking to about the 58 was, as you kind of hinted around it, there was the shock mounting and the ability to take it and move it, and it wasn't cracking and popping as much and all that kind of thing. Until right now, I've never necessarily thought about it in the sense of what you just said, being able to take it off the stand easily and things like that. That's is that more about the internal shock mounting than anything else, or do you know if that was a thought?
Well, that definitely plays into it in terms of form factor, but the Super 55 actually just screws straight onto a mic stand. So with this, you get an included mic clip. So your mic clip is hooked to the stand, and you could very easily off and on rather than having to move around with the stand. So that's what I was referring to there. I'm sure we'll get to the infamous shock mount that the 58 has that makes it, very durable and why it's stood the test of time.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing, I mean, just in terms of while we're on the design of it, is the sound signature. Very specific to this microphone, and I mean, it's been replicated for throughout the years since it came out. But at the time, it has a very defined presence peak. So what that means is, there's a bump in the space where human speech occurs. So why this mic is so popular with engineers and singers alike is because it very easily picks up where you want it to pick up, essentially in terms of frequency response. So it really, really allows the human voice to cut through, a mix or loud environment. So funny note about that. Sorry, go ahead. I'm cutting you off.
No, I was going to say that presence peak is sought after, and it's been 50 years, but it's pleasing to our ears. When there's any kind of bump in that range, it sounds good sonically to listeners, even if they can't bring forward as to why. But it's also remarkably consistent from microphone to microphone, which is one of the many ways the 58 and the 57 have been so embraced for so long, because people have just known what they get, whether they have one they've had for 30 years or they reach into, as you just did, and unboxed a new one today. It's incredibly consistent from microphone to microphone to know what they get. They can trust it. They can trust not only that it's going to work, but it's going to sound the same as the one that they used on a different stage 2 or 3 nights ago. But
exactly,
kind of thing. That's not. You were telling me this before we jumped on, but that's not necessarily something they set out to create, was it? With this microphone in particular,
right? Yeah. So Ernie Sealer, as I mentioned before, the creator of the Unidyne 3, the cartridge that's in the 58, he actually set out to have a flat frequency response with this microphone. And he was a little bit disappointed in this Presence Peak. He thought it was a flaw. So who knows? Had he been able to, fully get the frequency response with this thing to be flat, it may not have, been here today. We may not be talking about it on May 8th. And it may not be on the countless records and stages that you probably have listened to, but had no idea this was the mic behind it, or the 57.
Right. So for those of you tuning in here, I entitled this event "Story Time with Corey Willis" because this microphone has been around for so long. Any of us in the Shure sandbox, we can't have an event, we can't have a webinar, we can't have any kind of interaction with end users without at least 1 to 10 people being like, "Oh, I have a 58 from the 70s that I still use," or "I accidentally buried mine outside and used it the next winter and it worked perfectly fine." That's actually a real story. And so it's so easy to go back and forth and trade stories like that. So if any of you all watching have stories like that, or you can hammer a nail with it or anything like that, not that we would recommend it, feel free to chime in and chat. We have a few of our own, of course, but a lot of those, not only is it the sound quality, the uniformity and the consistency, but the build quality of all Shure mics, but mostly the 58 is what it's best known for, is really, objectively, it's the best there is out there. And we were going to talk a bit about something called military specifications. Do you have a bit of background with that, Corey, or you want me to?
Yeah, if you'd like to go ahead, it's part of all of the products that we make and we've made since World War II. So
let me share.
Share
a screen here. Not working for me. So you should see, this is from Shure's webpage. Is that what you're seeing, Corey?
Yep.
Yeah. So like Corey said, we're coming up on 100 years of Shure's anniversary, which is remarkable. And around late 30s, early 40s, Shure was contacted by the military to begin becoming the prime supplier, the primary manufacturer for microphones and headphones to all the Allied forces in World War II. And since then, Shure has adopted all military specifications for all Shure products, which they're the only company in microphone land, I think, that can say that. So if you think about the rigorous conditions back then of what people needed microphones to do in combat or getting over the extreme noise level of inside planes, Shure has kind of used that as its foundation and its standard to build everything on. That's terrible grammar, but you know what I'm trying to say. And that carries through to the 50s, and the quality still stands true today. So back to the story time element, when we start trading war stories of how we, have abused the microphone, accidentally dropped it down a flight.
Was that pun intended?
Yeah, that's so funny. I said that and thought I should have intended.
Yeah.
God bless America, man. I don't know. No, I don't have any war stories like that. But I have. Let me show those pictures. Other pictures you sent. Let me find those and send, because those show some battle scars here. Where are you? There you are. And like I said, those of you that are watching, which there are quite a few of you, chime in if you have any witty tidbits or your own stories for 58 Day. It's while we're here. Okay, what are we looking at here? What are we looking at? This. So you sent me a few relatively smashed versions of the 58. Yeah. What's this one all about?
So, in 2016, the 58 saw its 50th birthday. So around that time, we started receiving countless 58s into our archives, and this is just one of those. This was used by Derek Trucks, and it was on the road with him, obviously, for a long time. And it was retired and sent to us, but that's not due to it failing, but simply just due to its aesthetics and kind of the fact that it's smashed up but still works and is testament to what this mic actually is capable of. So I sent you that one, and I've got there's another one, not in that bad a condition, but that's Henry Rollins, who's actually, if you're watching us with us live here, he's going to be on another segment that Shure is hosting later today on May 8th. So yeah, that's just one of his. So I sent you that just to kind of plug that other interview that's happening later today.
Yeah, I'm surprised that one isn't
company
just,
celebrating.
I'm surprised like the grip on that one isn't just completely smashed in because of his
And now
forearms and his just wonderful attitude.
Right. I believe that if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's smashed in from where he holds it with his thumb, but don't quote me on that. But
yeah.
So I think, with these photos, it's worth noting that you see 58s and they can be smashed up but still working, and why is that? And it's because that's actually part of the design. The shock mount is built into the grill itself, so that the grill takes the impact and not the the cartridge itself. So that's why you see them in such wild conditions like this, where the grill is just decimated but the mic's still working. So common question once again that we get to,
Right.
People are like, I got this thing and it's smashed up and it still works. How's that happening? And that's all part of the design. So
nice unintentional segue, my man. So the first story I thought of when it came to mind is you pull out this nice polished looking 58. My SM58, and I hope I don't get scolded for showing this, is that.
That is the worst, one of the worst ones I've ever seen.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you, I guess. Not as cool as Henry Rollins. So we had an event in my hometown. We partnered with a local integrator, and we threw an event at a place called Flying Axes, which is darts with axes. It's exactly what it sounds like. And we did our thing, and we had lunch and all this stuff, but it concluded with just general camaraderie and throwing axes. And I was talking into a 58, and I had a chat with one of the giant, bearded lumberjack axe throwing fellows that these microphones, they're not indestructible, but my goodness, they can take a beating. And he kind of had like a, I don't believe you attitude about it. So what I did, I'm gonna try to share this, is I allowed him to, let me know if you're not seeing this, throw my 58 at a bullseye. And he decided he wanted to do it twice. And let me see if this plays right. So I will rewind this a bit. So his counterpart, who never missed, by the way, flinging axes, boom, he decided to launch mine. That hit right on the side of the grill. And I mean, it was loud. It caused people to turn. And it hits the ground and woohoo. Picked it up, still works. So I gave him a second crack. This one he threw a little harder.
As if once wasn't enough.
Yeah. And what I'm not showing you is there's about 30 seconds of leading up and him getting his arm right, because he was trying to make it hit square in the middle of the bullseye, and he comes pretty close that time. So the result of that was this completely almost to a right angle smash 58.
Amazing.
Right? So
all right.
Tell your boy Henry Rollins that I'm as cool as he is. No, I'm not. I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, and are you still using that, or?
So yes, before this I was actually testing it because I was going to use it for this, and then decided to use trusty MV51. But I was using it before, and not only does it still work, it sounds identical to a 57 that I have, to another 58 that I have that I choose not to use because that's just cool, right?
That's cool.
It still works fine. And this was I would say criticism's a dramatic word, but a criticism I used to get all the time about the 58 was the grill dents. I mean, you saw the effort it took to dent this. This isn't chintzy by any means, but it's designed that way, as you just mentioned, to protect the innards, much in the same way that cars crumple when we get in wrecks now to protect you. Is kind of how I always
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And to that point, I think it's worth noting, as a former roadie and a musician alike, easiest way, if you have a drummer around, undoubtedly they have some drumsticks, and the easiest way to get the dents out of these things, if you're on the road, or just you own a club, or you own your own 58 and it gets dented up, just remove the foam from the inside. Take a drumstick, the end of a drumstick, not the tip, and you can hammer that out pretty well to get it rounded out again. I would keep that one that way, in my opinion. That's a pretty cool desk piece. But that's just a trick. If you have 10 SM58s that you're like, oh man, I don't want to get rid of these things, they still work, but I want them looking newer again, that or a broom handle, some sort of wooden object to get down in there. But make sure you remove the foam out of there first, which you can always get back in. you don't want to tear that up. But yeah, little
Smart.
roadie trick how to get that thing, looking as good as it sounds.
We're getting some feedback from some people. Your counterpart, Laura, mentioned she's starting up a new franchise, which is 58 Throwing. As an agent of Shure, I cannot endorse that and will participate officially on the record. But if I do get some, I'm okay.
I'm all for it. If we can make it a company-wide event, you'll definitely get an invite as the founding member.
Right.
But yeah, so in addition to axe throwing or, mic throwing, throughout the years, Shure's made countless videos, that are on our YouTube channel where we've dropped them out of helicopters, literally dropped them out of helicopters and used it. Our, 7-story building in Niles, it was dropped off the top floor into our lobby. Both the 58 and 57 still works.
Mm-hmm.
We've put them through some tests in the over 50 years. So, but I'm all about starting an official league to try it out.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm saying. I was going to end that with being like, now we're not endorsing that, children. I know you're gathered around on your carpet squares, but we're not saying go out and do that. However, if there's a competition involved and there's like a league kind of thing, we can be the Unidynes or something like that. I'm all for.
Love it.
I'm all for that. So
love it. Yeah. Send me an invite. Great. Yeah. I think, we started with talking about, the military spec that, all of our microphones that we hold our microphones to, and we build our microphones for. But the 58, I think is the one that, like you said, we get questions and comments and great feedback about all the time. Simply because it's, so unique that it can look completely destroyed, but still work.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So, I was going to look up something here. We had the 58 itself, while it was so iconic and to this day is still an industry standard. I don't know if we can go so far as to say it influenced many other microphones, but the elements themselves have, and there are versions of 58 styles performing microphones like the PGA 58, which is a step down in price, may not be performance wise to some. And then a step up would be the Beta series, Beta 58, which is more with those early 90s, I believe, when Beta hit the scene.
Most noteworthy by the blue band.
Yeah.
The easy way to tell the difference.
Right. So the wonderful thing about microphones, and this goes for a lot of stuff in our beloved little industry, is I wouldn't say never, but there's very seldom an incorrect choice. There's always better choices, but there's a lot of subjectivity around what you prefer. I used to play in a band with a guy that sang into an SM57. There's certain mics that Shure has that are so clean and pristine and precise sounding that I choose to not sing into them because, well, I'm not good at singing, perhaps.
Too accurate.
They sound marvelous on other people. So everybody's voice is different. Everybody's ears are different. And from the 58 era, we can say there's been so many other iconic microphones that have kind of grown as well. So we had a handful to conclude today with a bit of show and tell of our favorites. This could get dangerous because we could go on for a long time, I guess, but do you have anything you want to start with, Corey, or did you have more to praise the 58?
Well, you mentioned two models that's a common question. So I figured, while we're celebrating the 58, we may address those. The differences just very quickly, between the Beta 58 and the SM 58.
Yeah.
Despite it looking very similar, the Beta 58, as it compares to the SM 58, off the top, it's super cardioid. Meaning that while the SM58 has rejection out of the rear of the microphone for any unwanted sound sources, the Beta 58 actually has it to the sides. So what that means is, in deciding what sounds better, if you consider that with a live sound situation, you're going to want this if you have a single monitor, or a Beta 58 if you have two, say, to the sides of you.
Right.
So, there we go. So, as you can see, it looks very similar to the SM58. However, it works, and sounds substantially different.
Is that you?
Notice extended highs and lows. Yeah, that's me when I had longer hair.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's the Beta 58, and you could term it as an improvement upon the SM, but realistically, it's just for different applications. So
yeah,
sonically, it's different. And yeah,
right. It's a little hotter too. Typically, the betas I play with are about 3-4 dB hotter, which is actually quite a bit.
Yeah,
because of the element itself, they tend to be a little cleaner and a little more sensitive, I would say. Again, that could be to some. That could be, that sounds better, whatever. Also, the grills, you may have said this, sorry if you did, but the grills on betas are hardened steel, so they don't dent because the shock mount had been improved. That's what I was told by the time the
exactly. Is right.
Early 90s. So a lot of betas I see are quite popular on like political stages or houses of worship where you have this really beautiful, clean and ornate setting. And then you get guys like Andy Oaks going up there with the mic like this.
Yes.
Take a seat. So exclusively because the grill doesn't dent, that alone can appeal to some people. So
exactly. Yeah, no, that's spot on. And yeah, the improved shock mount just exists within the cartridge and the housing itself rather than on the grill. So, so yeah, that's the first one. The second one that you mentioned and that we get a lot of questions about with this is the difference between the SM58 and the SM57. And, you know, they came out around the same time. I mentioned earlier that they've got the same cartridge. So what's the big difference? Well, it depends on the application, once again. So I double and triple checked this, even referencing here from our company historian. And the biggest, most notable difference is the grill or lack thereof. So for reference, I've got a 57, and here's the SM58 without a grill on it. So
your name on that? Hold on. Do you have your name on?
That's custom.
That you're not like, it's not like I'm afraid someone's going to steal it. That's like engraved and endorsed is what I'm hearing, right?
Yes, this was a gift from a dear friend, and it's cherished and it's on my desk every day. Stare at it and
sorry to interrupt.
How lucky I am.
But continue.
No. So yeah, 57, 58, biggest notable difference, is the cylindrical grill that comes on the 58. But as you said, some people prefer to sing into a 57. A lot of people prefer to do instrument miking with the 57 simply because you can get it closer to, say, a guitar cab grill or a snare drum. But I think from a general standpoint, they can be used interchangeably, So yeah. We could go on, as you said, for days talking about microphones, but that's a very base level of the, two biggest ones that we get the question of what's the difference between these two. So
another one you probably get a lot of questions about, which was a big focal point in our event last week, was the one you're talking into today, right? Which is SM7B, one of the most popular microphones in the world. The last few years, it's felt like the most popular microphone in the world. But what's up with that one? Can you give us a little tidbits?
Yeah. So I don't have the exact year. I didn't study up, but I believe this is from at some point in the 70s that this mic came out. It's been a staple in broadcast. It's been a staple in and countless music recordings. Most often for vocals, but I've used this on everything from snare drum, hi-hat, kick drum, and it's just a very unique sounding version of that Unidyne 3 cartridge that we mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. So a lot of bass response with this thing. Voice of radio. So yeah, this is seen an uptick of recent years that I don't think anyone at the company expected. Mm-hmm. People use it for podcasting, gaming, but like I said, you can use it on anything when it comes to music recording and just professional sounding vocal reproduction. So,
romantic radio voices is what I'm hearing.
Yes. Say. That's exactly. But yeah, it's definitely it's a different mic completely. And although it uses the same cartridge, the construction is what makes it so unique.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, that's another favorite. I'd say right up there with the 58 in terms of what we've got as far as company wide. But right. Well,
Right.
before we dive into favorites, I have one more that is a recent mic, and in terms of our company's long history, and that is the KSM-8. That's this guy here. I got the chrome finish one. Also comes in black. This is. We talked about the presence peak with the high frequency range with the Unidyne 3. That sweet spot with the human speech. The KSM-8 is going to sound more natural. Along the lines of that flat frequency response that we were looking for with starting with the Unidyne 3.
Right.
In addition, what's really unique about this is, it essentially, there you go. Cool.
It took me entire time.
It's a dual dyne. We have talked about how the SM58's been used on countless stages, countless recordings. A lot of people know how to work with that and can kind of, use it creatively to find a sweet spot. The sweet spot with the KSM-8 is essentially, widened. So the proximity effect, as you see mentioned there, presence peaks and just off-axis pickup definitely are more consistent with the KSM-8 than, say, the SM58. Mm-hmm. So, when asking why would I go with a KSM-8 over an SM58 or vice versa, the KSM-8 is decades of engineering and improvement upon the SM58, but I think they each have their own places. And SM58 is so commonly used that this is going to be where if you have a different performer every night on stage and you're an engineer, or if you have different musicians coming into the venue, this is going to be the choice for that typically, because singers know it, engineers know it.
Right.
It's
exactly.
Very unique. But the KSM-8 is sure, just constantly pushing the envelope and essentially reinventing the wheel countlessly. So that's become one of my recent favorites as well. The KSM-8's fantastic.
The first time first of all, I think it's one of the most attractive microphones that Shure's ever put out, especially the silver version. It's just beautiful looking. But the first time I saw that used, and we talk about not wanting to go too far down the rabbit hole of mentioning the artists that are using these, because it's like, I don't know, it's like saying the people who drive Honda Accords. It's just, everybody's using these things. But the first time I saw someone use it, it was the Pope giving some sort of papal address. And this was right after it came out, which I thought was kind of cool. So if you're of that stature and, you don't want to do this kind of thing, and Beta's just not cutting it, that's KSM-8. I mean, we can't forget about those customers too, Corey, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, this is just, we keep improving and, reinventing the wheel essentially. And this is just another, product of that. And I can't speak to having seen the Pope use this, but I just recently used this on snare drum with great results. And it was awesome. So anywhere that you could put an SM58 or an SM57, I'd implore you to try this out, I think.
Snare drum, that's interesting. Interesting. So cool. Again, here we are, it's SM58 day. It's exciting times, and it's something to celebrate in this very strange time we find ourselves in of well, God only knows what we're going through with this quarantine stuff. But you got any other plans today? Are you just gonna play with your microphones and tacos or anything tonight? What else you got going on?
Well, don't we have an offline call after this? We're just hanging out all day, I thought. But
yes,
this was story time, but then we have a more casual one.
We're actually in the same house. We're in just different rooms. So I'll go into just a minute. We'll hang out.
Yes, indeed.
But after this, let me see. Yeah. There's a Shure landing page actually in celebration, and I
wasn't sure if you had that link.
Yeah, I did. I just found, and I'm doing real bad with the sharing of screens, so I apologize to you people watching. But Shure's actually dedicated an entire landing page to all the happenings that are happening today. Again, we're giving away stuff. It looks like. What's this about?
Yeah, you can win one of the 5 custom Ignition Green SM58s. Yeah, just fill out that form. And yeah, today's the last day to enter. So I was lucky enough to see one of those in the office before we started working from home, and they're really cool. The new Shure branding, and we had those specifically made for this contest. And so if you win that, you're owning not only a piece of audio history, but something very custom that probably won't happen again.
So. Yeah, very cool. And then immediately following this in 25-ish minutes is not on this same channel, of course, but you guys are hanging with Henry Rollins, who's been a long time Shure advocate, among many other things that he's an advocate for. Wonderful guy. But this is happening in a few minutes as well. And then there's all your rep partners in the field all have their own versions of similar things like this today. So if you're looking for things to do, make sure you hit this link on the website, because there's lots going on. Hey, there's us.
There we go. Story time. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it right there. We dedicated an entire day, entire landing page. And I think it's because, we're just, I don't know if Shure would be, the company that it is without this mic. And I don't think rock and roll or music or, any sort of audio production history in general would be what it is without it. So that's why we're here today. That's why we're celebrating it. And we're all really excited to be a part of this. And the company that makes this icon. So
do you have any other quick favorites, whether they be 58 like or not, that you want to share with the class?
Looking around my my very messy desk here.
Your cat behaving? What's your cat doing?
No, he's going nuts back there. He just woke up. So the SM27. I love this thing. I don't know if this is even the proper term, but I would use this as like the right mic to have in your toolbox. It's something you can faithfully throw on anything from vocals to percussion. But it'll withstand high SPL. So, it's got a 15 dB switch, so you can throw it in front of horns or guitar cabs or what have you. And this is a favorite of mine of recent. And then one other noteworthy one that I don't have is a Beta 181. Do you have one of those laying around? I promise we didn't plan this if you do.
No, I do. Oh, here it is.
Oh, okay.
I got the stuff all about. And we, Ed is chiming in on our chat here and makes a great point.
All right.
And now I'm a little grumpy, that shouldn't this be like a 2-day celebration and celebrate the 57 as well? Because it came out first. Some would argue it's even more versatile. And yeah, so what do you think about that? Can you do something about that?
I'll let you spearhead that one. But no, I agree. I mean, we've talked about the 57 just as much as we have the 58 today. And I think that it definitely has its place in that same history that, I was just talking about.
So. Yeah. And I do have a Beta 181, and it took me a second to get it. You said 181, right? We're not.
Yeah, no, it's that one. I love it.
What cartridge do you have using it? That's why it took a second to get it. I was using it before. So this one I had on the ready. It's one of my, I hate when people say Swiss Army knife microphone, but so many of them are, especially with Shure, because they're so consistent and whatnot. But I've mic'd everything from acoustic guitars, which is my favorite. This is my favorite mic for that. Underside of a grand piano. And the first thing I ever used these for was room mics on a drum kit, and was comparing them to a competitor that was 4 times the cost. And A, being them with some critical ears in the room that we couldn't tell that much of a difference. It was really impressive. So what else do you know about this guy?
So yeah, you mentioned it being kind of a, Swiss Army knife of a mic. Comes in 4 different versions, but we also make a kit, so you can just unscrew that capsule. And there it is. If I'm not mistaken, cardioid, super cardioid, bidirectional, and omni. So you buy one of those kits and you've got a mic that can literally do anything. And as I mentioned with the SM27, it can withstand high SPL, so you can close mic a guitar cab with that. Yeah, there you go. The super cardioid one I like throwing on toms. It's a great tom mic for live or studio recordings, but and a small form factor too.
Yeah, I mean it's just the cutest little thing. I'll say that.
It truly is. That's one that gets a lot of questions at trade shows, and I love talking about it because, yeah, it is. It's new, it's cool, and it's very versatile.
Right. So Beta 181, those are spectacular. Speaking of Beta, because it's in front of me, we mentioned the 58 lineage, PG58, SM58, versions of that. But in the Beta realm, there's also a microphone called the Beta 87, which we know has been outrageously popular. There's a Beta 57A, which we mentioned before. When Beta has an A on the end, it means supercardioid, right? We talked about the polar pattern and how that on stage can minimize feedback with positioning of monitors and whatnot. But one of my favorites is the Beta 87C. Have you ever messed with this before?
Well, I have an A on my desk, which I'm really glad you guys can't see because it is just a mess of microphones right now. But yeah, I'm familiar with both. I think that's, what makes this such a cool one is that it comes in two different versions. So depending on your application, you like the way it sounds, but you don't like how you have to place it. It's comes in another version. So
yeah. See, and again, I've said this 3 times. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of explaining artist endorsers, and then I immediately follow that with an artist endorsement. But I believe 87's long been Stevie Wonder's choice mic. It was at least previously. Someone's going to fact check me and find out it's not the case, but it's also wildly popular with houses of worship and female vocalists. We have done a few, not a ton, but we've done a few AES microphone shootouts. At least a colleague of mine has, where they get a whole bunch of microphones on a stage and A/B them against each other completely blindly, just going through a mixing console. And it's everything from, $50 brand X all the way up to $3,200 brand Y and everything in between. And the Beta 87C has actually won on more than one occasion to the Blind Pepsi Challenge. So amazing. I've only been a part of one of those a little bit, but I've never listened to the A against the C, but I've been told the C actually can sound a little better. Maybe that's the polar pattern smoothness, perhaps. What do you think?
Off-axis rejection, it really depends on the singer, the application, I think. But the tech specs can also be found on Shure.com if you'd like to nerd out.
I'll find them. I'm going to read them all. I'm going to read them all to you.
I'm still waiting on the patent to be read.
Yeah. Let me read the patent first, and then we'll get into that. So, okay. We talked about last week, the other microphone, the last one I have that's become one of my favorites is what you're hearing me through right now, which is a Motive, completely different animal, an MV51. That is an iOS microphone, or excuse me, USB or iOS microphone that is plugged straight into my Mac. And that's it. And it's sitting here on my desk and it sounds phenomenal. I'll show you and not talk so it doesn't rumble about, but 51 is
modeled after the Model 51. So it's got that vintage look.
That's right. So this one's becoming more and more my favorite. I use it for video calls like we're on here, but acoustic guitar or just recording my kids playing some of my, whatever it is, it's such a good sounding mic for as simple as it is to get up and running. So I wanted to include that because that's the complete other end of the spectrum than what we've been talking about, right?
Exactly. And, we've been talking about versatility and various use cases. And the cool thing about that is, it can sit on your desk or you can mount it to a mic stand and mic up anything with it, instrument miking, et cetera. So, just another thing that, you can have in your toolbox, your Swiss Army knife, what have you.
Yes. Can never have enough.
But yeah.
So, we've covered a lot today, and we've had some great engagement here. Is there anything else you want to chat about?
Q&A? Is there any
Q&A? I'm still grumpy that we don't have a 57 day, and I feel like we've missed the boat. So I'm gonna, when we hang out in the next room here in a few minutes, I'm gonna
Amazing. Well, I don't know if we'd be able to have such a visual with this axe throwing league that we're going to start too, but 57 is just as durable and just as iconic, I believe, as well.
We have covered a lot of ground. To recap, today's SM58 day. We decided it's intergalactic SM58 day. You can throw axes and people smash things, and I feel like that was such a big part of our conversation. But the sonic performance and how good the mic sounds is really what's carried it forward through all these years. So thanks for all that have been joining us. This has been great. We're going to hang out again next week, Corey, right? For the third piece of our little trilogy here.
Yeah, we're talking the other end of the snake. We're talking personal monitoring, specifically wireless, but we may talk about some wired too, I'm sure. But yeah, personal in-ear monitoring is going to be the subject next week, which I think is in this day and age with the technology that we have, the only way that musicians should be listening to music on stage. So
right, in-ear monitors. We're going into that one thinking of it as demystifying in-ear monitors, because it can be very confusing to understand how to get up and running, but understanding the reasons why you should implement them into what you're doing just are so enormous. We want to make sure that we can try to simplify it as much as possible to give you the confidence to dive into them, because once you do, like you said, there's no turning back. It's just the way from there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm excited to talk about it because, like you said, it could be confusing or scary because, you're disconnected from the stage, but that doesn't have to be the case. And I'm excited to talk about that and explore, everything that we have to offer to make that a lot easier. So
2:00 next Friday, we will be back. Happy SM58 Day. There's lots of other stuff going on with our company and other companies like us around the country. The Sure Henry Rollins thing, I think, is in a little later. I said it was in like 35 minutes. It was pointed out that it's in an hour and 15 minutes from now. But
these time zones, who even knows anymore?
We're trying to.
But yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on today. But the SM58, I mean, we have people using it every day. But today, if you'd like to, tag us on social media and send us photos of, your torn up SM58 or, you using it on stage at a festival or your favorite show or on your favorite recording, please do that.
What's the hashtag? Is there a hashtag floating around? SM58.
I'm sure there is. Is it on that landing page?
I think it's SM58.
Sorry, I closed all my browsers and I have my phone in another room right now. So
yes. So tag here. I'll do this. I have the ability to do this. Tag SM58 Day. Hashtag SM58.
There we go.
This has been a growing thing. It's only really been a thing the last couple of years, but I was checking the social media activity around that hashtag earlier this week, and it's exploding, if you will. So if you do have things to share, please do so and use that tag so we can all check them out and contribute to story time just as we have today. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, Corey, thank you for hanging out. It was fun.
Always.
We'll do more of these things. If any of you have things to add, please comment. I see some comments still coming in. We're working on 57 Day. At least I am personally. Yep.
And also, if anyone has any, things that you want us to talk about, reach out to either McFadden Sales or, Corey Willis here at Shure. If you've got my contact info, and we would love to have a chat like this about anything Shure and microphone, headphone listening related. So
as long as we can tell,
I would. Yeah.
All right, friends. Thank you all so much for joining us. You all have a good and safe weekend. Try to get outside if you can. It is pouring down rain here, so I'm envious if you can, but perhaps tomorrow. Happy 58 Day. You all take care.
Happy 58 Day.